So, it seems like we are live. That's right. I haven't done a space show in a little bit. And this is not exactly meant to be the typical Shan Leonard deal. It's more me just talking about my feelings towards space. Um, in particular, I was going to read some passages from Shit Ramo's book, The Soul of the Night, but which I will proceed to do so for a little bit. But also, equally important, I wanted to talk about or read an essay that I wrote several months back about how space, to me, is intimately related to spirituality. So, with all that said, let me just continue on and read a few passages from called Faint Lights, Chapter 3. On March 10th, 1982, I waited for the world to end. On that day, according to certain elements of the popular press, all of the planets in the solar system were due to line up on one side of the sun, like pieces of meat on a skewer. The predicted consequences of this rare alignment would be dramatic. The combined gravitational tug of the planets, pulling as it were on a single rope, would raise storms on the sun and havoc on Earth. Volcanoes would erupt along the Earth's stress seams, earthquakes would shake the continents, geological faults would open like zippers, California would fall into the sea. Of course, it didn't happen. California is still zipped up along the San Andreas Fault. The sun still shines with a steady light, and the Earth still spins sedately on its old axis. The planets did not line up at all. At least not like the diagrams in the papers. Not like beads strung on an invisible string. At their most compact alignment, the planets occupied a pie-shaped wedge of 95 degrees as seen from the sun, which means they were spread out over more than 1/4 of the sky. They had been very close to that same degree of alignment for weeks before the predicted calamity, with no noticeable effect. Furthermore, the planets have been lined up more closely than this many times in the Earth's history without consequence. And finally, the total gravitational excess of this particular planetary alignment could be precisely calculated by astronomers. Jump from a second-story window onto the sidewalk and you will give the Earth a more severe shaking. Right. And yet, to have all the planets in the same quarter of the sky is a rare enough thing. A concentration of planets as tight as the alignment of 1982 occurs only once every 179 years. If you got up before the sun during the week of March 10th, you had a chance to see all 5 naked eye planets in the sky at the same time. So, and then continues on. It's really a fascinating book, and I think I would definitely continue reading this. For now, though, I wanted to actually talk about something I wrote a little while back, as noted, and I really should put the Medium link. I forgot to do that, so I'll just put it right here. And this is about my story of, and just briefly show that. You can just show you at 86.medium.com. That's actually my Medium account where I write a lot of different essays, poetry. Used to write some Python tutorials as well. I'm just putting it on there. But in any case, for this particular one, wanted to just read over really my story. Let's see what I can do. So let's see here. Okay. We shall see how this works. All right, let me tell you a story of what space means to me and why I find it deeply spiritual. Now, okay, first of all, let me show you a little picture of me. This was me when I was 7 years old. Clearly, I suppose I was highly amused by something. This was at Stone Mountain, which is a state park near Atlanta, Georgia, which is where I would like to say I grew up there, but really I grew up in Athens, Georgia, which is a college town. But my parents, they took me to, parks and such whatnot. But let me continue. I'll try to make this as short as the number of English words I knew when I was 7. The answer, by the way, is about 1,500. I first grew interested in space not from looking out at the sky, as a childhood picture may imply, but rather from books at the local library. My mom encouraged me to read and took me there almost every weekend. Since I had just arrived in America when I was barely 7, I knew almost no English and gravitated towards the books that had more pictures. Maybe it was divine intervention, but what irresistibly pulled me in were the beautiful picture books of astronomy. When I first saw the photos of celestial objects, including Earth from space, I hardly believed they were real. Libraries and bookstores were not common in China at that time, and I had never seen anything like this prior to visiting American libraries. When I saw the beautiful photos of Earth from outer space and other worlds, speaking of which, I actually have some pictures. These are the kinds of pictures, like that one, for instance. That's of course, didn't have that one back then. That's taken by James Webb Space Telescope. But let me see. There was like a whole series of astronomy books called, I believe it was called Astronomy, and they had really beautiful photos inside of let me see. Yeah, like something like this, it's like Earth, really beautiful. So most of them probably taken by NASA probes, but anyways, so I saw those books with those photos, and I grew very intrigued. So I was astounded that humans were able to build machines to observe them. I was even more stunned by the photos of galaxies and nebulas hundreds, if not millions, of light years away. From an early age, I recall declaring to my parents proudly that one day I would become an astronomer or space scientist. By the way, following the Asian trope here, there was a notion from my mom at one point to, go in the medical field. Like she did that for a while. But considering how little that I can stand blood or really any kind of, substances from the human body naturally produces that a doctor would see, she realized that was probably never going to work for me. So in my mind was always towards outer space in any case. All right, continuing on. Years later, I ended up going to college and acquiring dual degrees in aerospace engineering and physics. Through parental pressure, I felt obligated to do engineering instead of just pure science. Then, I continued my education in graduate school in aerospace engineering with a focus on mission design to a near-Earth asteroid. Then I got a job in the aerospace industry in Houston and finally reached my dream of working in the space industry. Worked on the ISS program for a bit before going to work in commercial lunar programs. In 2024, I accomplished a grandiose dream of helping America land back on the moon after the last Apollo astronaut left in 1972 through the Intuitive Machines Nova Sea lander. And you can click that link there. It's a Flickr account. I'll just copy the link address and actually just stick it here, actually, for anyone who's actually interested. But my point is, okay, wonderful. That's the end, right? Wrong. So if that was my story, like a lot of my colleagues, then this would not be a very interesting story. And I write here, perhaps this is the story of many of my colleagues, but it definitely was not mine. First and foremost, I have never identified myself as an engineer. I was not someone who busily played with robots or built Legos for fun in his spare time as a child. In fact, this is not really shameful, but I actually paid people, neighborhood kids, because I like the idea of having a beautiful Lego set built, but I didn't want to do the work myself. So I paid somebody with stickers or something to just build it for me. So yeah, that may tell you a thing or two. So I spent a lot of my time creating fictional worlds with my friends in my bedroom using my toys. So army soldiers, little clay things that I made. So I was pretty artistic back then. I still am. But point is, I was I guess nowadays people play Dungeons and Dragons. So I was essentially a game master without realizing I was a game master. And I would create these intricate stories, and these characters would walk through exploring new worlds. And and of course there would be technology and magic and all those things involved, and you have different hit points, damages, classes. Okay, so basically I was inventing D&D without realizing that's what I was doing. But it was very fun, and I spent a lot of time doing that with my friends. Daydreamed a lot, looking at the sky, and really reading a lot and writing. I was and I'm still a dreamer and spiritual being above all else. So even back then, I would persistently ask, like, what is the meaning of this existence, right? Like, what is out there? Like, I look at the world, not just the world, but looking beyond it, looking out, looking at the sky, looking even within me. Like, is this all there is? Like, what is humanity meant to do? Are we meant to be live, find a job, I don't know, make money, get married, have kids, propagate further? That's it? Like, where are we all headed? What is this, right? Where are we in this universe? So science fiction played a huge role for that. So did poetry. In much of the material I read, whether it be fiction or nonfiction, I frequently came across the notion that we humans are utterly insignificant in the grand scope of the universe. We may be several billion creatures, but we all reside on a tiny little planet in an ordinary star system on the outer edges of a spiral arm of an ordinary galaxy that contains over 100 billion stars. The number of galaxies themselves number over 100 billion. So you do the math, multiply the two, right? And it could be well over 2 trillion. We're not sure exactly. These numbers are truly astronomical, pun intended. And while I was reading all this and thinking about this and daydreaming, I always thought like all of our problems on Earth, poverty, famine, homelessness, war, like there's so many conflicts and so many issues we have. But when I look at the grander picture, all of them seem so insignificant compared to the cosmic question of our place in this indescribably vast universe. Like, this planet could have so many problems, and it does today. By the end of the day, we're just a tiny little speck. And if we all disappear tomorrow, just boom, like whether it's nuclear war or some virus or some disease or some, galactic cosmic ray vaporize our atmosphere, whatever it may be, the universe is going to go on, and we barely have a dent. Like we're so insignificant. We have like no impact on the universe as it's evolving. So for myself, anyways, let me continue. I never saw myself as someone who would want to fight in war for the right cause or develop the next gadget to make a lot of money, when there was such a fundamental question that I wanted to help in answering. Who are we in this universe, and what can we discover out there? And through discovering out there, what can we discover inside of us? Like, as us as a species, as us as individuals, what does it all mean, right? So, anyways, I said my path in life has not been a straight path. I didn't go directly into the space industry after graduation. I came with graduate out of school right when the space shuttle program ended, and had a lot of issues trying to find a job at that point. And I wasn't really in a state of mind where I was desperately trying to apply. I did some, but I thought I would try my hand at, startups. And I teamed up with a professor and some other students at that point to see if I can make that work. How young and naive I was, I didn't think things would be that hard. But eventually, that didn't go very well, and frankly, I had a bunch of setbacks. You can imagine how difficult it is to run your own company, and I was not in the right mental headspace. Definitely was trying to do. I was not financially stable, obviously. I don't think I was completely mentally and emotionally stable. And I definitely had a complete breakdown. So I had to take a break from doing everything for a little bit and really examine where my life was going to go. So that was about, thinking back, that was about 10 years ago, maybe 11. I ended up getting into other industries, like I did education, solar energy for a while. When I was in between jobs, I was tutoring a bunch of students. Those areas were interesting, and I still love education and renewable energy for sure. And just like that field. However, in the background, I felt like my soul was always aching. So, and it was dying, although I didn't realize at the time. So I only realized this after I transitioned to actually working in space to help humanity explore the cosmos, and that made my soul feel truly alive. So here, the I can quote a passage from Dream of Spaceflight by Wayne Weghorst, which is actually another one of my favorite books. That was the book which actually inspired me to get the Shade Rainbow book. So this is the book I have. This book I actually first found out about it from my graduate school advisor when I was at Texas A&M, and he had this book laying around, and he was very poetic as well. This professor, my mentor, and I think I immediately got it. But anyways, the whole book is beautiful, but just quoting this passage here: in the long run, the whole politics of society is more profoundly changed by a new sense of human potential than any amount of obsessive self-maintenance. Where there is no vision, says the proverb of Solomon, the people perish. Without a source of meaning larger than the ego or beyond mere survival, one is left at the center of a universe devoid of transcendence. The significance of anything derives from its larger context, one dependent in turn on still greater perspectives, until we reach what sociologist Peter Bergers calls the sacred canopy, the boundary where known and unknown meet. So these days, I definitely continue to read a lot of fiction and nonfiction, both intellectually and in the spiritual realms, ideally combining the two, but there's few books that do a good job combining the two. So there was I guess on the day I wrote this article, December 28, 2024, I was at a local Houston wellness shop that sold plants and records for somebody anyways, that store owner, acquaintance of mine, eventually maybe I'd give a little space lecture there. But I found this book there that was laying called Mind and Body, and it was quite beautiful, and it had I did not purchase it. Maybe next time I will. But it's been almost 9 months now since I saw that book there. But anyways, it was quite beautiful, and it talked about the mind and the body, how things are linked together. So this was a passage from there. We are not at the center of anything, thankfully. We are minuscule bodies of evanescent matter in an infinitesimal corner of a boundless universe. We do not count one bit in the grander scheme. This is a liberation. Rather than complaining that we are too small, we can delight in being humbled by mighty ocean, a glacier, or planet Kepler 22b, 638 light years from Earth in the constellation of Cygnus. We can gain relief from the thought of the kindly indifference of spatial infinity, where no one will notice and where the wind erodes the rocks and the space between the stars. Cosmic humility taught to us by nature, history, and sky above us is a blessing and a constant alternative to a life of frantic jostling, humorlessness, and anxious pride. So, I do believe we're absolutely insignificant, but also precisely because of that, I feel like I must make the most meaning possible in my life. And to me, to do that is to live a life of what I find meaningful, of purpose and love. So I want to understand and practice like self-love, love towards others, love of the divine, through spiritual groups, self-reflection, reading, and genuine loving relationships. And on an existential scale, I want to create a change for our species on this tiny, insignificant world, as these books have alluded to, by inspiring others with wonder about our universe, as well as working on these projects myself. So, aside from like doing what people would call a day job, I do, if you're watching this, you know that I also do a SG2 on Space radio podcast, which you can see on the other link. I also do reading poetry open mics, which I really enjoy doing, and writing reflective essays like this one, and just a lot of daydreaming, I suppose. I don't think we can ever reach a perfect society, utopias. I mean, I love reading books about that. Some of my favorite science fiction books are not the dystopian books so much, but more like a ideal utopian society. But, is that truly possible? I don't know. I think we can. I think it's asymptotic. I think we can try to get closer, inch closer and closer to it. But it's a truly to be perfection. It's an impossible goal. And what is life after this one? I mean, maybe this is all just a testing ground. If you're someone who follows any faith, most faith will say like this world as we know it, this terrestrial world, or this universe, out of many possible universes, that's a different story, is, like when we die, like we're not, in this world, like it's important to live a good life, but there is so much more beyond this life. Not to say that like, this life is not significant. Hence, it leads back to the fact that, ironically enough, because our human lives are so short, because this planet is so insignificant in the grand scope of the universe, everything we do is significant because we create the significance. We can turn something that is completely minuscule and you might think meaningless, we can make meaning out of it and we can discover more. Just imagine if we already know everything, then where's the wonder in that? That's my view, right? Like if we're already godlike, and let's just say I can just create a star or a planet or just create these living creatures like God, then what are we really, right? Then where's the wonder in that? I mean, there might be another type of wonder, but wonder, I feel like, only comes about because of the unknown, of the things that we do not know how to do, of places we have not yet explored, of physical theories, biological theories, consciousness, all these things that we do not yet fully understand. That is where wonder comes from. Wonder comes from exploring the unknown, whether within ourselves or out there. And so because we're so insignificant, because I'm so insignificant, there is so much to explore, and there's so much wonder and curiosity to discover within me and out there with people, with the universe at large. Anyways, that's what I believe. So I'm doing my part. I want humanity to become a spacefaring civilization. I would love to have trips to the moon and Mars be a regular occurrence. For instance, somebody might want to take a trip to, name some Pacific island, right? Go to Hawaii, say, right? And just go like hang out at the beach. Right now, if I want to take a trip to the moon, to go to the far side of the moon, to go look at the stars in clarity that we can never see on Earth, because of the moon, there's no atmosphere and no interference. I can't do that. I can't book a trip to the moon just to do that because we don't have that ready-made technology. It's not there's no day trips to the moon. There's not even, moon, Mars. If I think even further out, comets, asteroids, go out towards the Kepler objects, Kuiper Belt objects. Go to a different star system. I mean, that's even more, right? So there's so much out there, and we are barely scratching the surface. So, as that famous Russian rocket scientist from early 20th century, who I would never pronounce his name correctly until I fully learn Russian. But anyways, he said that we are humanity. We're in the cradle. We like babies are in the cradle, right? But just like babies, we don't. Hopefully, you don't stay in the cradle forever. So, and that's what I'm saying right here. We are meant for so much more. And really, at the end of the day, that's what I hope for. So, wants to advance sociologically and technologically and spiritually. So, I think all these are linked together. So, anyways, that's my spiel. And that's a fundamental precept for me in terms of why space exploration carries so much meaning in my heart. So, all right, with that, I will end it.